Our goals was to just simply be the best. I just never took it serious. And then this one day, Michael said, Q, come and sing for our manager. And he must have just caught me on the right day, but I was like, all right, cool, I'll go. And that was the day I joined the group. If you talk to anybody that has had fame at a young age, we're not mentally prepared for that level of success and fame. Now, thank you, God bless y'all, good night. Now, what you said, it can go back to there. You know, Puff threatened to send us back home a couple times. He was mad because, yo, this is not what I signed. There were days she would say, don't call me no more. I don't like you, I can't stand you. This is done. And I would just have to take it on the chin and show back up. Join me, my wife, the journey. Q Parker story.
I know there's been a lot of speculation about my retirement and what I plan on doing next. And you know, throughout my life, I faced many obstacles. The road has not always been clear. During those tough times, I felt alone. But I prayed and I asked God for strength. In my turmoil, God reached out to me and it revealed whatever I was going through was a part of my true destiny. It was at that moment I made a decision to stop getting in the way of God's plans, because my true story of my destination was my journey.
Known as one of the members of the platinum-selling R&B and hip-hop group 112, Quinnis Parker, also known as Q, made a leap of faith into the music industry, along with his group members, as they quickly became one of the hottest groups to ever take the stage.
How does a first single just come out the gate and be popping? Then how does the second single add to that? How does the third single, Cupid, which is one of our biggest records, take your first album to double platinum? Then the second album, Anywhere. Then Love You Like I Did. Then the third album, It's Over Now, Peaches and Cream, Dance With Me. I mean, that stuff just don't happen like that. So when I fast forward the story, I know that it was all a part of the plan, but it was unbelievable. 19 years old, from Atlanta, never really been anywhere, never experienced nothing, and you can't go anywhere in the country or abroad because you have the hottest single, you have the hottest record on radio.
Before becoming an R&B sex symbol on the Bad Boy roster, he was a normal kid born and raised on the streets of Atlanta, Georgia.
I'm one of the few native Atlantans still walking around the city. Church is very important. Growing up in my family, I'm a Kojic kid, Church of God in Christ. So, you know, you can't say that without going into detail. Church of God in Christ means church every day, three times on Sunday, just church all the time. Having that foundation in the church, it was just certain things that was instilled in us growing up. I'm the youngest of four. And because we were in church all the time, it kind of shielded me from, and shielded us from a lot of the things that were going on in the neighborhood. And granted, I grew up in the inner city. The area that I grew up in Atlanta is called Thomasville. It's an apartment complex behind the state penitentiary. And I mean, we had our days of struggle. You know, as the great poet say, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. But when I look back, I know that I was destined to do something because of all of my friends that grew up in the same neighborhood that I grew up in. I was presented with the same struggles. I was presented with the same things. But when I look back, I just realized how many times I was shielded and protected from all the things that all of my friends fell victim to, whether that was the streets, getting locked up, just living a stressful life at a young age. So when I look back at my younger days, I can appreciate being rooted and grounded in the church because it did shield me from a lot of the things that were going on in my neighborhood. I just knew that music was something. My mom sang all the time, and that's where I get the gift from, my mom. She sang all the time. My mom had a stint of being a professional singer with a lot of the local church choirs. And music was always in our house. My mom always played music. I can remember as far back as, I want to say maybe 4. my mom and I would play this game where we wouldn't necessarily talk to each other. She may sing, "Baby, go get me some water." And I may just be like, "Okay, yes, ma'am." We would just sing. That was the way we communicated. And when she realized that this was something I was serious about, she made sure that no matter what level of schooling I was always a part of the chorus. I competed in talent shows and all city choirs, that type of thing. Me and the guys, we met in middle school. So by the time we went to high school, we were already a group. Still not known, still very local. We were competing in a lot of talent shows, just building up the buzz. The name of our group at the time was Forte, Forever En Route to Excellence. And when we went to high school, I'm very sociable. Like, I'm just a people person, man. I never meet a stranger. I'm just fun-loving. I like to have fun. I like to make people feel comfortable. I like to engage with people. And I was very outgoing in high school. Played football, basketball, ran track, played tennis. President of the SGA, Spanish Club, Beta Club, Honor Society, I was just well-rounded. And I didn't really take singing serious at that point. Like, I knew I could sing, but I didn't realize the cool factor that singing gave you. I always thought about, the cool guys are the athletes. Yeah, it's cool to be smart, but the cool guys are the athletes. So every day we would go into the lunchroom. You have your different groups. You have the athletes over here, the jocks. You have all your scholars over here. You have the singing guys over here, or the Spanish club people over here. And honestly, I could really float in all of the circles because I was friends with everybody in some of those circles. But the thing that I gravitated to the most was athletes. But every day I would see the other three guys and the other two members of the original group singing. And I'd say to myself, man, I could do that. That's really my passion. And no matter what team I played on, I was known as the singing dude Preacher. They used to call me Preacher. Because anytime before the game, they'd be like, "Q, man, sing something for us. Q, man, sing something." Or I'm on the basketball court just humming. Running around, just humming. So singing and music was just always a part of just no matter what I was going to do. And then it just hit me one day. My group member Mike asked me to join the group. He's like, "Q, man, we need another member of the group because two of the other guys graduated and they just left three guys." And at that time, to have a three-man group was not cool. You either had to have 4 guys or 5 guys. And they asked me, and I had to front. I can't even front. I was just kind of feeling myself. I'm like, man, I don't really have time, and which I really didn't, because you think about it. I go to school, do my homework, had some kind of sports practice, then had to go rehearse with the guys. Then I had a little girlfriend at the time, so I'm trying to juggle. Like, man, do I go rehearse with the guys, or man, do I try to go see my girlfriend? A lot of times I would go see my girlfriend, and I just never took it serious. And then this one day, Michael said, "Q, come and sing for our manager." And he must have just caught me on the right day, but I was like, all right, cool, I'll go. And I went, and I never forget, I sang "How Do I Say Goodbye to Yesterday," Boyz II Men. And that was the day I joined the group. The members of this group is just a unique blending of individual vocalists. Rarely will you see, and you can go back through the test of time, will you see 4 guys come together, all hold their own, can stand on their own, but come together and make an awesome sound, like Q, Mike, Slim, and Deron can. So we started performing in talent shows, just building the buzz. We were winning so many talent shows. And our manager at the time said, "Hey, a good friend of mine is coming in town, Sean Combs, and I want you guys to meet him in the parking lot of 112. We was too young to get in, so we had to wait on him to finish clubbing. And when he came out of the club, we like, "Yo, we want to sing for you." We sang for him, and he signed us. 2 weeks later, we needed to come up with another name because Rapping Forte was out, and then there was another group called Forte or something like that. So in thinking about a new name, it just took us back to where it all started for us, and it was in the parking lot of the Club 112. And 112 at the time was like a landmark in Atlanta, and we wanted everybody to know that we were from Atlanta. So 112 became the name.
After signing with Bad Boy Records, hope for starting a new career did not take off right away.
Everybody was really just excited at the time because it was just like this idea of, you have a record deal. Now, mind you, we signed the deal in '94, but we didn't really start working on the music until '95. And a lot of times people will sign a record deal and never come out, or they'll sign a record deal and get shelved, and you'll never hear from them. So when August comes around and it's time to register for school, I'm still at home. September rolls around, October rolls around, November rolls around, December rolls around. My mom and dad looking at me like, yo, some gotta give. You know, you've passed up a scholarship. You know, my mom told me as long as I made good grades, I never had to work. So 112 was my first job and my only job. But at this time, my mom and dad looking at me like, yo, you gotta do something. You cannot live up in here and not contribute. As my dad was laying down the law. So January rolls around, still no movement. February rolls around, March rolls around, right? So imagine that. March 20th of 95, we moved to New York to start the recording process. It was difficult because to my church family, I should have been singing for the Lord. But I have to be honest, there were no opportunities for me to use the gift that God gave me, right? So when I go and get a secular R&B record deal, I didn't necessarily get the support that I thought I would get. And I have to say that it kind of did something to my psyche. Like, it made me feel like this is my church home, and you guys have been championing me since I could remember. Now all of a sudden I get an R&B record deal, and now I'm singing the devil's music, or now I'm shunned from church, or when I walk in church, I'm looked at with this sneaky eyes and stuff, and I'm hearing the murmurs. So it made me pull back. It made me rebel. It made me really, really feel some type of way about just my spirituality. I questioned my parents at times. I'm like, how are you guys allowing them to treat me this way when you're supposed to be my buffer? You're supposed to love me through it all, regardless. Isn't this the gift that God gave me? I'm still using the gift. Do I have to sing gospel music? What if I don't get in the gospel opportunity? Like, these are all the questions that I was asking, and I wasn't really getting the answer that I thought I deserved. So when I moved to New York, I basically said to my home church, basically, man, like, forget y'all. Y'all not supporting me, so I'm moving to New York. Well, now I'm feeling some type of way. Feeling like my church ain't supporting me. Got money. You know, I've signed to Sean Combs, Bad Boy Entertainment, the hottest record label out at the time. And I can come and go as I please. I got to answer to nobody. It's just me, my 3 brothers, and a manager. I came from a house where it was just strict. Don't do this, you can't do this, be in the house by this time. Don't be on the phone, you can't do that, you can't do this. But now, everything is game on. And that's not to say that initially we opened ourselves up to everything. But you know, when you let your guard down, you become a little loose, then you may get a little looser, and then you'll look back and say, yo, I'm going too far. Right? So I don't know if there were necessarily any rules that were set. It was just an 18, 19-year-old just living. The recording process, it was scary because prior to us moving to New York, we had very limited studio training. Now, we're just God-gifted singers. Just by nature, we just singers. But we didn't realize that there's a difference in just being a natural singer to being a studio singer. There are really techniques that you have to learn to come across the way you want to come across in the studio. That's why you have some people that are better live than they are in the studio, but then you have some studio singers that are better in the studio that necessarily aren't that consistent as live singers. You have to learn to master both of them. And at the time, we didn't. So our first sessions were rough. You know, Puff threatened to send us back home a couple times. He was mad because, yo, this is not what I signed. Y'all didn't sound like this when y'all was singing in the parking lot. No, give me those guys back. And if you know Puff, you know he's very animated, and he pressured us to the point where some nights we were in our apartment looking like we got to get it together because going back to Atlanta is not an option. We done passed a scholarship. Slim was at Morehouse at the time. We gave up a lot. Like, no, we cannot go back to Atlanta. So we had to really lean on each other, build each other up, motivate each other, so that we could really be the artist, be the group that we know he had invested in and that we knew that he put his belief into. Because everybody wanted to be a part of Bad Boy, but there was a reason why he chose the four of us from Atlanta to represent the male group of Bad Boy.
As a young group from Atlanta, the 112 members had to find their way to make their mark in the music industry.
When Puff first signed us, all we wanted to do was sing ballads. It was all about Duran playing the keys and the three of us around the piano just singing to some girls. That was just really what it was about. Ballads, nothing fast, just crooning. Well, the unique thing about Diddy was he didn't really care too much for the R&B, but he was all hip hop. And it was an even exchange where he introduced us to hip hop. We kind of made him comfortable in just being a part of the R&B world, which ultimately became our definition, 112's definition, hip hop and R&B, because it was the perfect blending of the two. We had no idea what hip hop was, but I'm so glad that we ran across Puff because it defined us in a way that no other group could say that they could match that, and it made us stand out. It made us stand out more so than any other group. Another unique thing about 112 that made us different from other groups was Slim's voice. You know, Slim has probably one of the most unique voices. And at a time where there was so much traffic when it comes to R&B groups, his voice singled us out from the Drew Hills, the Jaggeds, the Blackstreet, Guy, simply because of the way his voice was so distinctive. And anytime you heard Slim's voice, you knew automatically that's 112. And at the time, I can't say that we understood it because we were like, yo, we could sing too. But when we look back at it, it was the dopest move ever, man, because we needed to be different when there was so many other groups out at the time trying to vie for the top slot. As time went on, we were able to unveil the other talents of the other members of the group. And it was a process. It was a process that we had to go on. But initially, it was the right move to put Slim out on the forefront because his voice was just like no other male vocalist out at the time. What made the change from us going from, you know, who we were as artists in the beginning to ultimately becoming sex symbols and very sensitive, very melodic and soulful singers had a lot to do with Puff's ear. He knew the sound that he wanted, and he knew what would sell. Mind you, he had just helped Jodeci become who Jodeci was when he was at Uptown. So he knew what he was doing. It was just difficult for us because, remember, we were 4 church boys. So we didn't know about black leather and pierced ears and all that stuff. It was really like neckties, cotton neck, man, it was, we were just really square, man, like, honestly, man. But meeting Puff, he gave us an edge. He gave us a swag that could complement our voices. Because it's one thing to just be able to sing. But I think another thing that really made us different from other groups was that the fact that we could sing, but we had this coolness about us, and we had this edge that we could wear what nobody else could wear. We could sing what nobody else could sing. The swag of just being a part of Bad Boy was like none other. And then the record started to get more mature. You know, we started at 17. A lot of people say when you listen to the first album that we were ahead of our time. But then when you go to the second album and you have a song like Anywhere, right? Then the third album, you have like Peaches and Cream. As you can see, we were just growing up and just maturing. And a lot of that was, you know, fantasies of ours. A lot of it was real life experiences. But, you know, having the career that we have, it allowed us to really grow and mature, not only as musicians and artists, but as men too. Puff had this saying, he would say, if I can't play it in the tunnel, we're not releasing it. And the Tunnel in New York was like one of the most popping clubs in New York City. So that's where they would go and break a lot of records. Well, you know, they're not breaking a ballot in the club. So that was his testing mechanism. If I can play it in the tunnel and it's rocking in the tunnel, I'll put money into it and that's what your single will be. We had no choice in the first single. Honestly, this is a funny story, but we hated Only You. I mean, literally hated it. Now, mind you, again, we were balladeers. And when he played us the track for Only You, the original version, it was the sample of Casey and the Sunshine Band. So imagine as songwriters, an 8-bar loop for 4 minutes. For 4 minutes. That's it. When I look back at that, I can appreciate the process because it stretched us. We had to be creative melodically in our minds. So if you listen to Only You, you'll hear the oohs. Ooh, that was us singing the music to make us have other ideas because the sample was just. So it pushed us and challenged us to be musical with our voices in order for us to feel okay with it. But we sang like 4 different hooks. He didn't like them. Nah, I don't like that. Maybe 5 more. Nah, I don't like that. Went back and sang the original one. And he said, yes, that's it. That's it. That's what I'm talking about. We were like, but that was the first one. Everybody like, shh. But we probably would have gone with a ballad if it was up to us, which would have been the wrong move. Because as you guys know, Only You came out, and then the remix came out with Notorious B.I.G. and Mace, and became a number 2 record on the R&B charts. It was like it was out of a storybook. Like, and see, when I tell the story, I can fast forward the story and know why all the things happened the way that they happened because it was a part of the divine plan.
While dominating the music industry, 112 has had the support to work with countless artists and performers.
When you look at our career, every artist we toured with were legends and are legends and icons. Our first tour was with the Isley Brothers, then Keith Sweat, then New Edition, then Whitney Houston, then Janet Jackson, then we did the Puff Daddy and Family tour. That don't happen. It just does not happen that way. So even if we were not the smartest artists or not the most talented artists, which I'm not saying we weren't, but let's just say if we weren't, every night we got a chance to watch the best people do it for the first 10 years of our career. You can't pay for seeing Ronald Isley work a crowd. You can't pay for Janet Jackson electrifying an audience. You can't pay for Whitney Houston just being soulful and connecting. You can't pay for New Edition in sync and precise and can't pay for that stuff, man. So every night we made a point, and our managers at the time made a point to make sure we were on the front row or in the wings every night to just watch them. Because the one thing that I loved about watching New Edition and the Isley Brothers, they're groups too. And within groups, everybody have a role. New Edition probably one of the best to do it because they established Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, Mike, Ralph, and Johnny. You knew every last one of them, but every last one of them had a role to play that made the group move the way that they did. Everybody can't be the soulful guy. Everybody can't be the best dancer. Everybody can't be the smooth guy. No, that's his lane. Let him do that. You figure out your lane and you just perfect that. That's what make groups move the way that they move, because it's like the Bulls. It was only one MJ, but it was only one Scotty. It was only one Steve Kerr and John Paxson and Tony Kukoc. Our goals was to just simply be the best, to be named and mentioned amongst the best to ever do it in terms of male R&B groups. Our influencers were legendary groups. Isley Brothers, Temptation, Boyz II Men, New Edition. So we felt like we had a responsibility to continue that mode. And I'm proud to say when I look back over our career that we could arguably say we in that conversation. The unique thing about 112, we were not put together. So you didn't get one guy from over here, one guy from over here, one guy from here, one guy from here, and now force y'all to be a group. We actually grew up in the same neighborhood. So as they say in Atlanta, we went outside together. You know, your mom said, go outside and play, go outside. So we rehearsed all the time. We went to the mall to get together. We bought our first cars together. Like a lot of firsts that we experienced, we did it together. So we developed a genuine love and brotherhood with each other. And that's not something a lot of groups can say. So even when we had our trials and our most trying times, we could always just fall back on the brotherhood, because the brotherhood was really what was solid. And just like a brother of yours, y'all can not like each other, be mad at each other, but at the end of the day, y'all are brothers. And I say this all the time, no matter what discrepancies we have with each other or have had in the past, or even currently have, when we get on that stage and when the music starts, that's when the magic happens. Nothing else matters. For that hour, I mean, we could literally have fought prior to give it up for 112. When the music start, you got a job to do. And I am my brother's keeper. I ain't gonna let you down. Now, thank you, God bless y'all, good night. Now what you said, like, it can go back to there. But that's what brothers do. And it's a dynamic that only group members would understand. It's a bond that is just unbreakable.
On the next, The Journey with LaMarr Woodley.
Fame, man, is one of those things where if you're not educated about it before, it really can ruin you.
But Q, he'll say, it takes two, you both gotta work at it. I didn't want to work at it because I felt like I was betrayed.
What I tell you all the time, I got us in this, and I'm gonna get us out, and I ain't gonna quit.